Hello, everybody. Welcome to Reserve Seating. We are celebrating Junesploitation all month. Specifically today, we're celebrating Cartoons Day with an inversion of the theme where we're talking about two live action adaptations of cartoons, whether they started in the newspaper or on television, or were at one point live action TV shows, or were comic books, maybe? I don't know. We're talking about George of the Jungle and Dennis the Menace. How you doing, buddy?
I'm hanging in there. How's your Junesploitation?
It's been good, but I over June-sploitated.
Oh,
And it's like I have like a upset stomach now, and I need to like wait because I'm about to go in. I'm like in June-sploitation food coma, and I need to take a day off. But let's start with George of the Jungle.
ooh, okay.
This was only my second time seeing George of the Jungle. I saw it in theaters.
Yeah, I definitely remember seeing it a couple times as a kid, but it's been years. It's funny because both of these movies activated that thing in me where like I recall like a line delivery or like a
Yeah.
set piece, and I'm like, oh, that's right. Like I remember seeing this 50 times when I was a kid. I just don't remember anything about the movie. I just gonna throw it out there right away. I think this is easily the stronger of the two movies. I don't know. Maybe you agree.
I think it's a much better movie than
Yeah.
Dennis the Menace. I think that the movie I think George of the Jungle is less my speed than Dennis the Menace, though, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
okay. All right. Well, that's good.
It's it, and I'm not saying that like either of them are exactly my speed,
Yeah.
but like George of the Jungle to me is about as good of a George of the Jungle movie as you could make.
Sure.
And it's funny in theory, but it's also and the performances are good, especially Brendan Fraser and Thomas Hayden Church, who there's not enough Thomas Hayden Church.
No, the movie needs more Thomas Hayden Church for
They
sure.
tease you with some great Thomas Hayden Church in like the first 15 minutes, and if that continued for the rest of the movie, it would be a better movie. My problem with George of the Jungle is I think that it's a little too impressed with itself.
Sure. Yeah, I mean it's got that sort of referential kind of talking to the narrator kind of,
Yeah.
self-awareness to it, which we're burnt out on now, but I think that at the
Yeah.
time there was an endearing quality to it that made I really enjoyed it, but
It reminded me of Barbie on this
sure.
viewing
Yeah.
without like the social commentary.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I think that there's like a long tail in terms of like antecedents of George of the Jungle. Like they like this and the Brady Bunch movie, it's like they figured out how to do it.
I was about to say it was like there was a way of adapting those 60s favorites in the 90s where it was like we have to kind of poke at it a little bit. We have to kind of acknowledge that this thing is old fashioned or a little bit out of vogue. They don't do as much with the sort of colonization stuff. I mean, they comment on it a little bit in terms of, the way George is kind of this he's this sort of Tarzan. There's so much in this that I think is of its time, I mean, like in a
Yeah.
good way. Like I was just watching it thinking like I was a kid in the 90s and I'm watching this and going like, "Oh, movies like this is why I'm all messed up." Like movie like this why where like
What do you mean?
you can have like a perfectly normal, story going, and then all of a sudden like one of the characters starts arguing with the narrator.
Yeah.
Those little bits like that. Then, like the Monty Python of it all. That kind of is where a lot of where my sense of humor lies and where I was kind of like the Back to the Future 2 kind of like, oh, you can like go into a movie and like have it talk to itself and all that. And that's so much more of my speed, which is maybe why this movie is more my speed than Dennis the Menace. But there's so much in there that reminds me that like we say this all the time, like the best movies are supposed to be for kids. Like we say, yeah, it's a kids movie. It's like, no, kids movies should be the best movies, right? So
Hmm.
the fact that this movie has like a solid, character arc and narrative structure, and he's in the jungle, then he's a fish out of water, then we go back to the jungle, that sort of three-act thing. And, you've seen 1,000 movies, but there's some cleverness to the screenplay. No, it's not too harsh. It's not too violent. I like the narrator even says, like, nobody dies in this movie. Don't worry.
Hmm.
Little stuff, just little bits like that just shows me that they're approaching these properties, not every 90s property did this, but like they approached this movie with a little bit of care and not they weren't embarrassed that they were making a George of the Jungle movie.
It's like they found the wavelength of it it's cool how uncool this is,
Yeah,
and they kind of just run with it. The only thing for me is just it just pushes it a little bit too much for me.
sure.
It reminds me of like this is maybe a bad comparison, but it's like if I go to a frat party, like I don't do that anymore, but
No, no.
obviously when I was in college and I would go to a frat party, I would want to get drunk, but I wouldn't want to get blackout drunk. And I think George of the Jungle wants to get blackout drunk. And it like down to John Cleese gorilla singing My Way in
Yeah,
Vegas. It's like it like that. It's just like no, like give me more of the Thomas Hayden Church actually accidentally pushing the guide off of the bridge
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Like I like that stuff. Just how like the stupid entitled, dude in the jungle. I like all that stuff. I like the naivete of the romance and everything like that. It just goes so far that for me, I pull back a little bit.
But yeah, overall, I just think that again,
Yeah,
we talk about Brendan Fraser and all that, but like it is just
yeah.
it's just one of those things where you can see that they cared, and that
Mhm.
goes a long way.
It's kind of nice too, not to, I don't know. I feel like Leslie Mann is so synonymous with Judd Apatow now that it's sort of nice to see her
Something else, yeah.
outside of Apatow.
Hmm.
So that's cool too, because she like that this and Cable Guy, she had like a really cool,
Yeah.
kind of quirky presence to
Hmm.
her as like a romantic lead back in the mid 90s. And her and Frasier are really good together, and he's just like in his element between like Encino Man, this, The Mummy.
Well, speaking of which, obviously in retrospect, he's talked about the sort of physical pressures of this and the injuries and all that, and it is kind of a
Yeah,
shame, but the work is fantastic. So
it is. It is. And the work lasts forever, just like Mason Gamble's work in Dennis the Menace. I'll start out by saying this.
yeah,
Uh, I've never identified more with an elderly person
yeah.
than I did on this viewing with Mr. Wilson played by Walter Matthau. Like I felt really bad for him. And I was texting with Patrick and he was just like, "Yeah, but he says some terrible things to Dennis." And I was like, "They're all justified." This poor man just wants to live his retired life with Joan Plowright, his wife,
Yeah.
and be left alone.
Work in his
And
garden.
tend to his garden, his orchid that blooms once every 40 years and
Yeah.
everything like this. And this kid needs therapy. Like this kid needs to find like they need to, like the parents are doing a horrible job of setting boundaries for him with their next door neighbors. It was really bothering me.
Well, the fact that I mean, I think of as a parent of a kid, I would think of it as like, what? I'm sorry, it's Saturday morning and he's going over to Mr. Wilson's house, in his house, up the stairs, into the bedroom. The parents, when he comes back, the trouble he gets into is, it's really not polite to do that.
Yeah.
Dennis. And it's like, this is why gentle parenting is bullshit, folks. Then the parents are just like, it's time for us to go now. This is a crisis moment for you in your adolescence, and we're going to leave you alone during this crisis moment.
Christopher Lloyd is like 75% too covered in dirt in this movie. He's too scary until they set up the Home Alone third act, which I think completely derails what otherwise would be like a 2.5 out of 4 movie
Yeah.
for me. Like, I think it's just because Walter Matthau is so good in it.
Oh, the world's rubberiest face. I mean,
Yeah.
just you get so much mileage out of just anything. Put the camera anywhere on that face, and you'll just get all kinds of glory.
Yeah, he does a great job of somehow towing the line between playing Walter Matthau but also playing Mr. Wilson like perfectly. Like he's equally good at doing both at the same time. It's just the Christopher Lloyd thing. Like it's like John Hughes. This was a John Hughes production, and like
Yeah.
he just couldn't help
Couldn't
himself
help
like to
himself. He had
do
to get
like
that Home
a
Alone shit in there. Yeah.
Home Alone thing.
So much of this movie requires Dennis's maturity and
Mm,
agency to like bounce up and down. Like sometimes he's like crafty and self-aware.
yeah,
Sometimes he's a baby. You know what I mean? Like, and then sometimes he's very innocent. Sometimes he's kind of cunning. Sometimes he's deceptive. Sometimes he really wants to press a button and can't help himself. Sometimes he's being intentionally cruel. The prank war with the babysitter and the boyfriend, I don't know where that comes from. There's just like so
yeah.
much in here where you feel like maybe Hughes was just like he had some pages left over from Home Alone. He was like, there's some pages over here. Like, let me see what didn't I use? You know, the movie is it's episodic in a bad way. It's full of bits that I don't always think really connect. There's the whole storyline with the treehouse and the two friends. You think that's going to go somewhere, and then it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I like the the kind of sense of just sort of summer suburbia. Like
Ah,
it feels very comfy and familiar to
the
me.
vibes are good.
Like the vibes are good. I don't know, Mason Gamble as Dennis. I don't want to pick on like a child performance, but he's an adult now.
Yeah.
So Macaulay Culkin, like one of the things that's great about him in Home Alone is like it's this unaffected performance,
Mhm.
sort of. And I feel like Mason Gamble kind of has that, but like it's just also it's like he's has no idea what he's doing.
I tend these days to blame bad or questionable kid performances on the directors because you
Yeah.
know that a good child performer can it's about creating the reality for the kid, right?
Mhm.
So Spielberg, for example, knows what he wants Drew Barrymore to do in E.T. You know, he
Yeah.
knows like and Culkin obviously is all actually both Culkins, all the Culkins have that naturalism to them. But there's also adult actors who are more naturalistic than others, and he, as you said, maybe isn't being used correctly. He isn't being told how to apply from day to day that skill or that affect or that voice or whatever he's got that made him stand out among, I'm sure, 1,000, 20,000 kids who tested for this role.
Yeah.
Um, there is something about him. He's in Rushmore a couple of years later. He's really good in Rushmore.
He is good in Rushmore. I remember he was the son of Tim Robbins and Joan Cusack in Arlington Road.
Okay.
Um, I think if Tim Robbins and Joan Cusack played his parents in Dennis the Menace, this would be a logical prequel to Arlington Road.
It would make
Yeah,
sense.
this makes total sense
Yeah.
why he has snakes in jars and won't stop bothering his elderly like neighbors. Also, speaking of cartoons, I think George of the Jungle does such a good job of doing a live action version of but still feeling like a cartoon.
Right.
Whereas Dennis the Menace, it's like it's upsetting to see this in live action, but like I watched it as a cartoon series in I think it was the late 80s or early
Sure.
90s when it was on television. And like then it's just like, oh, this is really funny and it's fun and everything like that. And I think it fits like because you don't think about the consequences of like or the nuisance or the dis or imposition of like what's happening to just adults who are minding their own business.
Yeah.
But in a live action version, it's sort of I don't know. I just found myself like being really upset for them.
Oh, and I also think like part of that extends to the end when he gets kidnapped, and you're kind of like, it feels like you're kind of playing unfair with the audience at that point because you're setting up this kids movie that's whimsical, that's a series of pranks, you know, golf balls whacking Walter Matthau in the butt, you know, great American cinematic stuff. And then it gets super serious, and you're kind of like, well, if this movie isn't like a cautionary tale about why Dennis shouldn't be that way, it's supposed to be about Mr. Wilson and Dennis's relationship. So like adding that last thing in there just to compel Mr. Wilson to be like, "Oh, I actually do care about the kid,"
Mhm.
not only feels too dark for this movie where you've set up these rules and then you're kind of breaking them, it also is kind of a storytelling cheat because like, well, of course he's gonna care that the kid got kidnapped. He's not gonna like celebrate, oh yeah, the kid got
Yeah.
kidnapped, I don't have to deal with him anymore. Like that to me, it just feels, I don't know, this feels just very beneath John Hughes.
Yeah, he kind of had a run like post Home Alone with like Baby's Day Out and this where
Yeah, not the
he
best.
seemed to be just kind of, riding the coattails of a success
Yeah.
at the beginning of the decade. So, I would say watch George of the Jungle,
Yeah.
probably skip Dennis the Menace.
That's where I am too. I think George's Jungle is a very fun, very again, a kids movie that still wants to be a movie. And I think that Dennis the Menace is kind of a big misfire. It's just a series of gags and tones that don't mix.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about like Dennis the Menace though still being more my vibe, even though I can like mentally recognize like Georges of the Jungle is much better. I think it's just because it's like suburban Chicago. This was
Sure.
shot in, so it
Yeah.
looks very like reminiscent of like my youth and the neighborhood there. And um Yeah, and I don't know. Yeah, just John Hughes is very formative for me, but this isn't one of the best examples of his work. So we will be back next week, we're celebrating Free Space Day.
Yes.
So we're gonna talk about just stuff that we've been watching this month for Junesploitation. I've got like three movies that I've watched this month that I can't wait to talk to you about that I've really enjoyed. Um, and yeah, yeah. If you think that we're wrong about George of the Jungle and Dennis the Menace, leave us a comment.
But not on this video. Leave us a comment, but on somebody else's video.
Yeah,
Yeah. We'll see it.
we'll see it.
Yeah.
So until next time,
These seats are terrorizing the neighborhood.
and don't fall into any bushes
And watch out for that tree. There it is.
because no, never mind. Watch
Bye.
out for that tree. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.